No, it's on. Yeah, so you just need to speak into it.
Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Council for April 2024. My name is Mayor Margaret Thomas and I will be chairing this meeting. I would first like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on this evening and share this message from the elders. Kaya kaya Burdias Mamanyot's Kulanka, Nuna de Mort, Nichikulan Nalamai Kalamunda Butja, Yay, Nandurapan, Wajulas Kulan, China, Nuna Danicha, Nunga Butja, Nunga Burdias Kura, Yay, Birda, Cadillac, Birda, Kaya, Yunga. Hello, welcome to our leaders, men, women, family members who have come to our place today, and I'm happy to see you standing on Noongar land of their leaders, past, present and future. Thank you. The operations of Council and the agenda for this meeting are governed by the provisions of the Local Government Act, Standing Orders and City of Kalamunda Code of Conduct. All matters of business listed in the agenda will be dealt with as separate decisions of Council. This meeting is also live streamed and I would like to welcome those watching remotely. Thank you for your attendance and interest. Are there any apologies, Acting CEO?
I have no apologies and no leave of absences.
Thank you. Public question time. We have some questions taken on notice at the previous meeting from Michael Ryan, and they are listed in the agenda with the responses. We also have some questions that we are tabling from Diane English, and they will be answered and in the agenda for the next meeting. I would now like to invite Sue Dowson to come and ask her question. Thank you, Sue.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I apologise for my croaky voice. I'm getting over a cold. I have been COVID testing, so I thought I'd do the right thing and wear the mask. To set the context for the two questions I wanted to ask, I was present at the February 27 meeting where the council's tree retention policy was revoked. I listened to the arguments both for and against that evening. I left distressed at how little our community was listened to. We were not even given the opportunity for consultation. As a preface to my first question, Councillor Giardini, I know that night you spoke that you were supporting the motion for revocation by Councillor Madolo because you felt that the small landholders in our community were not being listened to or consulted sufficiently. Well, I am a farmers market regular. I've gone there every Sunday since it started. I value our local growers and orchardists. And I can tell you that
Sue, sorry, can I just get you to ask a question
I need
of
to
the
set
city
the
officers,
context.
not of councillors?
No, I'm not going to.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor, I promise. Talking to them in recent weeks, in light of the current forest collapse that sadly we are getting to bear witness to in this long, very dry summer, what I can tell you is that the growers are saying they are under attack. They're under attack from below and above, from the hungry and thirsty kangaroos and the flocks of black cockatoos that they try to shield off from one end of the valley to the other. Basically, their crops and their trees are being devastated. On the evening of that revocation, it was pointed out to Council how vitally important it is for these birds that every significant tree be retained. Each mature tree that we lose decreases their remaining habitat, and it does increase the pressure on the orchards. Can I also preface my question by observing that from living in the hills does not, as was stated incorrectly a number of times in that meeting, mean that you love trees and you would never cut them down for any reason except a necessary one. My husband and I have lived here in Kalamunda for 16 years. We live alongside the national park. Our neighbour that has lived there many years longer declared about 6 years ago that he didn't like jarrah trees. Evidently they're messy. So thereupon he set about cutting down all the mature jarrah on his block. Those were jarrah trees that were habitat for not just the cockatoos, they were habitat for hundreds, possibly thousands of insects, birds and mammals. His block has now had all natural vegetation and jarrah cleared off it at the front. The only thing remaining are marri trees. So my question to the council, now that the policy has been revoked and in light of the increasing pressure of climate change on our environment, can I ask what is in place to prevent a private landholder, such as my neighbour, from cutting down the mature eucalypts that we have in our environment?
I will direct that question to our manager. Thank you, Chris.
Through the Chair, thank you for your question, Sue Dowson. The revocation of Local Planning Policy 33 did not remove regulatory control over works that involved tree removal. The policy provided guidance, and the guidance is for the city's officers, for residents, for the council to make decisions on when an application for development approval is required and ultimately when one is submitted and how that should be assessed and determined. In the absence of that policy, the removal of trees of a significant size or significance may still generate requirement for development approval. The city does have interim guidance in the absence of that policy, which are being applied, and a lot of that revolves around each circumstance is likely to be considered on its individual merits and based on the individual factors, based on the request. For example, landowners come to the city with a variety of reasons for wanting to manage their land for pruning or removing trees. Each individual one requires its own individual assessment. For the more significant cases, there are still processes that can be employed by the city through an application and can be triggered through a development proposal. So I guess the regulatory part of tree protection is still in place to a certain degree. It's just the guidelines for how that should be determined and assessed is no longer enshrined in policy adopted by the council. In terms of what else the city has in place for protecting its urban forest or enhancing its urban forest over time, we do have strategies in place. The city's urban forest strategy focuses on a range of ways that in the long term the city can enhance its urban forest. Part of that did include managing trees through the development process and trying to retain and regenerate urban forest through subdivision and development. So that's just one part of it. There are other areas in public education in helping landowners increase urban forest on private land. There are also greening programs within the city's assets, so parks and roads where the council has influence over those items. There's also trying to partner with other institutions to generate additional funds to support the management of its trees on existing reserves.
So can I clarify? Because as I understand, the tree retention policy was in part brought in to help control demolition of trees on private land, and that's not part of the urban forest policy. It's not part of development procedures or works. Is a situation such as I explain, where a neighbour sets about clearing his block, is there anything in place that would prevent that or allow me to complain or affect some change in that?
Through the chair, as I've outlined, the development of application process, so the ability for the city to undertake compliance and also request that landowner that's undertaking that activity submit an application for that activity is still in place.
So I could request, if my neighbour informed me that he was going to cut down the
Sorry,
rest.
I have to pull you
Sorry.
up there. It can't
Yeah.
be a backwards and forwards.
No,
You just
okay.
need to ask a question.
Sorry, Mayor. So the second question basically was based around, I did a lot of searching down documents, looking at social media, reading reports in the paper, listening to your media announcements, and it seemed to me in the balance that the whole issue with LPP 33, which Councillor Madola maintained was poorly written, was actually not the policy, it was the way it was being implemented. I completely understand the deputation from the arborist. Of course, it would be infuriating for someone of expertise explaining that there was a tree that was dangerous to be told by a council officer who didn't have formal qualifications that it wasn't dangerous. I lived in Guildford when there was the fight for the sugar gum, so I know arborists were critical to the process there of retaining significant trees. So my final question is, the policy sets the principle, we understand that. The way that it's implemented and the guidance that the officers get should be through procedure. Was there actually any procedures in place to guide them in how to implement in a uniform way and to avoid the perverse outcomes that were used as a rationale for ditching the policy? Is it possible to bring that policy back but support it with detailed procedures that actually explain how to get uniform implementation.
Manager, if you could respond to that, please.
Through the chair, the policy went through an implementation phase, which was 1 and a little bit years, and it's acknowledged that that it was a relatively new policy in the context of the Perth metropolitan region, and I think what we've found since is that the West Australian Local Government Association have done a lot of work preparing those guidelines and what you call procedure, if you like, that should underpin a policy like that. And there has been a lot of learning that's occurred in that context. So in answer to your question, it is viewed, at least by WALGA, as being a policy that can be implemented effectively, and part of where we're at the moment is workshopping that with our councillors to understand what a policy should look like as part of, if a policy's adopted, what it should look like. So once there's some further information on that, then that will become available and will be communicated.
Thank you very much for coming to speak to us and for your questions.
Thank you.
So we do have one deputation tonight, but that will be done in the confidential section. Are there any applications for leave of absence, CEO?
Through the chair, I have no applications for leave of absence.
Thank you. Councillors, we have 2 lots of minutes to confirm. So the first one, the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 26th of March 2024. Do I have a mover that these are confirmed as a true and accurate record of the proceedings? Thank you, Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Stallard. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. On the basis of that motion, I now sign the minutes as a true and accurate record of the meeting of the 26th of March. And the second meeting was a special council meeting held on the 9th of April 2024. Do I have a mover that those minutes are confirmed as a true and accurate record of those proceedings? Thank you, Councillor Giardina, seconded by Councillor Cooper. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. On the basis of the above motion, I now sign the minutes as a true and accurate record of the meeting of the 9th of April 2024. Announcements by the member presiding. I would like to share with you some highlights from our past few weeks, including some recent engagements with our fantastic community. Firstly, we convened a special council meeting to appoint our new CEO, Mr. Anthony Valletta, who has since confirmed he will be joining us mid-June. I and the councillors are eager to collaborate with him as we continue to serve our city. During Youth Week, we hosted a wonderful event called Connecting Communities at Hartfield Park Recreation Centre. It was heartwarming to see the centre buzzing with activity, with stall holders and community members coming together to explore the array of activities and services available locally. This event truly promoted connections across different ages and different stages of life. The 123rd Kalamundra District's Agricultural Show was a real success, and I extend my congratulations to the organising committee for their exceptional work in making it such an enjoyable and memorable event for all. Everybody loves the Kalamundra Show. Participating in the Anzac March last weekend was a deeply moving experience. I was joined by Councillor Madolo and Councillor Stallard, and it was inspiring to witness our community uniting in honouring the sacrifices of our past and present service members. One of the most touching moments was last Saturday when I visited the Kalamunda District's Junior Football Club with Councillor Stallard. I had the privilege of opening the season and presenting Mr. Mike Perry with the Freeman of the City Award. Mike's dedication and contributions to the club over 3 decades have been truly remarkable, and it was such a joy to recognise his efforts by naming the veranda the Mike Perry viewing platform. Anzac services continue. Tomorrow I'm visiting Wollaston Primary School to take part in their Anzac service. Then on Thursday I expect all the councillors to be up at 4 o'clock with me to join in our community in the Anzac Day Dawn service hosted by the RSL Kalamunda, a solemn occasion that holds great significance for all. And I understand there's also a service at Pickering Brook. Friday I will be at the Pickering Brook School. I would like to thank our teachers and principals for keeping the Anzac story alive to our students. These experiences reinforce the strength and spirit of our community. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to engage with you all and contribute to our shared vision for a thriving and connected city. Thank you. Matters for which the meeting may be closed, item 10.6.2 will be moved to the section behind closed doors. Are there any disclosure of interest, CEO?
Through the Chair, to confirm I have not received or there are no known disclosures of interest.
Thank you. We now move on to the reports and we go straight to the community engagement reports, review of policy 15, closed circuit television. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's related to this, to the CCTV infrastructure. Previous encounters with this network have proven that some cameras and things were not operating. Are all the cameras that we have operational, and if they aren't, is there a timeline for them to becoming operational?
I'll direct that to our manager.
Thank you. Through the Chair, my understanding is that everything is operational at the moment, but I will take it on notice and confirm that.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 19? Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Monthly financial statements. Councillors, do you have any questions? If not, is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 27? Councillor Stallard, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Debtors and creditors reports. Councillors, you have a list of questions in front of you, and you also have the confidential list in the pink pages. Are there any further questions, not confidential, that you would like to ask? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 33? Councillor Madolo, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. The rates and debtors report to the end of March 2024. Are there any questions? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 37? Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillors, do you have any questions about the advocacy strategy? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 43? Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.6.5, we will move to item 15, meeting closed to the public. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given. Are there any questions of councillors by members without notice? Councillors, do you have any questions on anything? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is probably to the Director or the Acting CEO. In High Wycombe South, there are obviously some delays in getting things moving down there. Has the city developed an advocacy strategy, and have they moved on advocating for key enabling infrastructure in that area?
Go to our Acting CEO, who's also the Director of Development Services.
Thank you, and through the Chair, thank you, Councillor, for your question. The City has developed an advocacy strategy in accordance with the previous Council resolution for that area, and we have been working with state government, developers and their consultants, and also the community and landholders to try and realise the impediments or constraints for future redevelopment of that area. Particularly with the advocacy strategy with state government, it's particularly focused on the need for infrastructure investment, and that's really about liberating the development costs which are seen as an impediment towards the future change of that area. With some of the developers and their consultants, we've been actively working with them. They have been advocating on their own grounds, but we're actively working with them to understand their needs for future redevelopment of works and constraints that they face within that section. And we have and continue to maintain an open dialogue with community members to resolve any issues that they may have as best as we can with particularly the planning framework and their understanding of that. So there's a lot going on in that space. By no means is it a short journey. It is a long journey for us to work through that, and the city has deployed as much of its resources towards the achievement of those goals to transition that area as quickly as possible. So the city will continue to do that.
Are there any other questions, councillors? If not, we'll move on. There are no questions by members of which due notice has been given, and there is no urgent business approved by the presiding member or by decision. So now we go to item 15, meeting closed to the public. And can I have a mover that we go behind closed doors? Councillor Giardina, seconded by Councillor Cooper. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.